Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and watched the stars pass by through the main screen. The ship was huge and held 50,000 people who all wanted to start new lives on a planet far from Earth. Jake had been their captain for 3 years now as they traveled through space toward their new home. The journey was long, but Jake never got tired of looking at the endless stars and thinking about what waited for them at the end of their trip. Commander Lisa Brooks walked up to Jake with a worried look on her face. She held a datapad in her hands and her fingers moved nervously across its surface. Lisa had been Jake's second-in-command since the mission started, and he trusted her more than anyone else on the ship. When she looked worried, Jake knew something bad was happening. "Captain, we just got a message from the Galactic Council," Lisa said quietly so other crew members could not hear. "You need to see this right away." Jake took the datapad and read the message. His face got darker with each word he read. The message came from Ambassador Krelvex of the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians were tall blue creatures with 4 arms and big black eyes. They controlled most of the galaxy and thought they were better than everyone else, especially humans. The message was clear and cold. Humans were not allowed to settle on any planet outside something called the Safe Zone. The Safe Zone was a small group of planets where humans could live, but only as workers for the alien races. They could not own land, start businesses, or make their own rules. The aliens saw humans as weak and stupid because they came from only one planet and had not been in space very long. They say if we try to land on Kepler 442b, they will send warships to stop us, Jake told Lisa after reading the whole message.
"They think we are too weak to survive on a frontier planet." Lisa shook her head.
"The Zephyrians have never even tried to settle that planet themselves. They say it is too dangerous, but they do not want us to try either." Jake called Dr. Amy Carter to the bridge. Amy was the chief science officer and knew more about Kepler 442b than anyone else on the ship. She had studied all the data about their destination planet for months and months. When she arrived on the bridge, her brown hair was messy from working long hours in the lab, but her eyes were bright and excited. "Show me everything about our new home," Jake said to Amy. "I want to know exactly what we are walking into." Amy pulled up images and data on the main screen. Kepler 442b appeared before them as a world of blue oceans, white clouds, and brown continents. It looked beautiful from space, but Amy's data told a different story about life on the surface. "The planet has 2 suns," Amy explained while pointing at the screen. "This means the temperature changes a lot between day and night. Sometimes it gets as hot as 80 degrees and as cold as -20 degrees. The radiation from both suns is also very strong and can hurt people if they stay outside too long." She changed the image to show strange creatures flying through red skies. "The local animals are not friendly to visitors. These flying creatures have wings made of sharp crystal that can cut through metal. They hunt in groups and are very smart. The Zephyrians call them razor wings." Jake studied the data carefully. The planet had other problems too. The soil contained chemicals that would kill Earth plants. The magnetic field around the planet was weak, which let in more dangerous radiation from space. Storms happened often and were much stronger than anything on Earth. "The Galactic Council thinks we will all die within 6 months, Amy continued. "They have never seen humans survive on a planet like this. Even their own people have trouble with frontier worlds." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had left everything behind on Earth to start over. They had families and children sleeping in the ship's living areas. They had dreams of building towns and farms and schools on their new world. The idea of giving up and living as workers in the safe zone made Jake feel sick. "What do you think, Lisa?" Jake asked his second-in-command. "Should we turn around and accept what the aliens want?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. She thought about her own daughter sleeping in their small cabin. The little girl was only 5 years old, but she already talked about the garden she wanted to plant on the new planet. "The people on this ship did not come all this way to be servants," Lisa said finally. "They came to be free." Jake nodded and made his decision. He activated the ship's communication system so he could talk to everyone on board. His voice went to every cabin, every work area, and every gathering place on the huge ship. "This is Captain Martinez speaking to all colonists," Jake said into the microphone. "We have received a message from the Galactic Council. They want us to give up our destination and move to planets where we will work for alien masters. They think humans are too weak to survive on frontier worlds. They think we should be grateful for whatever scraps they throw us." Jake paused and looked out at the stars again. "I have a different idea. I think humans are stronger than any alien race believes. I think we can build something amazing on Kepler 442b. I think we can prove that Earth people belong anywhere we choose to go." The response from the colonists was immediate and loud. Cheers echoed through the ship's corridors. People banged on walls and stamped their feet. Children who were too young to understand the danger clapped their hands because the adults around them were excited. Jake smiled as he listened to the sound of 50,000 people choosing freedom over safety. The USS Horizon continued its journey toward Kepler 442b, while the Galactic Council waited for humans to obey their orders. They would be waiting a very long time. The USS Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and Kepler 442b filled the main screen. The planet looked even more beautiful up close, with swirling white clouds covering blue oceans and green-brown landmasses. Jake Martinez stood on the bridge and watched their new home slowly turn in space. After 3 years of travel, they had finally arrived. "Take us into orbit, Navigator Chen," Jake ordered. The ship moved closer to the planet, and everyone on the bridge could see mountain ranges, rivers, and what looked like forests covering much of the surface. It was hard to believe this pretty world was supposed to be too dangerous for humans to survive. Chief Engineer Rob Phillips was already preparing the landing shuttles in the ship's hangar bay. Rob was a big man with strong hands who could fix anything that broke. He had worked on space stations and mining ships before joining the colony mission. If anyone could build a base on a hostile planet, it was Rob. "I want you to take the first team down," Jake told Rob over the communication system. "Find us a good spot for the main base, somewhere with water, shelter from the storms, and room to grow." Rob picked 20 of the ship's best engineers and builders for the advance team. They loaded 3 shuttles with tools, building materials, and enough food for 2 weeks. The plan was simple: land on the planet, pick a safe location, and start building humanity's first settlement on Kepler 442b. The shuttles flew down through the planet's atmosphere, while everyone on the USS Horizon watched and waited. The ships passed through thick clouds and finally broke into clear air above a wide valley between 2 mountain ranges. Rob could see a river running through the valley and forests of strange purple trees growing along its banks. "This looks good," Rob said to his team as they prepared to land. "We have fresh water, natural windbreaks, and those mountains should protect us from the worst storms." The shuttles touched down on flat ground near the river. Rob was the first person to step outside and breathe the air of their new world. The air tasted different from Earth air, with a sharp smell that made his nose tingle. The gravity felt normal and the temperature was warm but not hot. For the first few hours, everything seemed easy. The advance team unloaded their equipment and started setting up temporary shelters. The purple trees turned out to have strong wood that could be cut and used for building. The river water was clean and safe to drink after being filtered. Rob began to think the Galactic Council had been wrong about this planet being too dangerous. Then the first night came, and everything changed. The temperature dropped so fast that water left in cups turned to ice within an hour. The team's Earth-made equipment started failing as metal parts contracted and electronic systems shut down. Rob and his people had to crowd together in one shelter and run heating units all night to stay alive. "The temperature swings are worse than our data predicted," Rob reported to Captain Martinez on the ship. "We need better insulation and heating systems if we want to survive here long term." The next day brought new problems. Environmental specialist Kate Adams discovered that every earth plant they tried to grow in the local soil died within hours. The soil contained chemicals that were like poison to anything from their home world. Kate had studied agriculture on 3 different planets, but she had never seen anything like this. "We cannot grow food here using normal methods," Kate reported to the team. "The soil will kill our crops before they can even sprout. We need to find another way or everyone will starve." While Kate worked on the farming problem, Communications Officer Dan Wright struggled with a different issue. The planet's magnetic field was much weaker than Earth's, and strange radiation from the twin suns interfered with their radio equipment. Dan could barely maintain contact with the USS Horizon orbiting above them, and reaching Earth was impossible. "We are cut off," Dan told Rob during their evening meeting. "If something goes wrong, we cannot call for help." On the 3rd day, Security Chief Steve Murphy discovered they were not alone on the planet. He was exploring the forest near their camp when something fast and sharp flew past his head. Steve ducked behind a tree and saw creatures unlike anything in Earth's databases. They looked like birds, but their wings were made of what appeared to be living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Razor wings, Steve whispered to himself, remembering Dr. Carter's briefing. The Galactic Council data was right about these things. The creatures circled overhead, making clicking sounds to each other. Steve counted at least a dozen of them, each one about the size of a large eagle. Their crystal wings caught the sunlight and threw rainbow patterns across the forest floor. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Steve made it back to camp and warned the others. From that day forward, no one went into the forest alone. The razor wings seemed curious about the humans but had not attacked yet. Steve hoped it would stay that way. Despite all the problems, Rob's team kept working. They built stronger shelters that could handle the temperature changes. Kate developed hydroponic growing systems that used filtered water and nutrients brought from the ship instead of local soil. Dan rigged communication equipment that could work despite the planet's interference. 3 months after landing, the advanced team had grown to 200 people. Families began moving down from the USS Horizon to join the growing settlement. Children played in the camp's safe areas while their parents worked to build a real town. They called their new home Haven because it represented their hope for a better future. The colonists learned to adapt to their new world in ways the Galactic Council had never imagined. They scheduled work around the temperature swings, built underground storage areas for sensitive equipment, and created warning systems for radiation storms. When the Razor Wings finally approached the settlement, Steve's security teams were ready with non-lethal deterrents that drove the creatures away without hurting them. Life on Haven was hard, but the colonists were proving every day that humans could survive and even thrive in places where other species feared to go. They had not just survived the first 3 months on their hostile new world. They had built the foundation of something that could last for generations. Rob Phillips stood in the center of Haven's main plaza one evening and watched families gathering for their daily meal. Children laughed and ran between the buildings while adults shared stories of their workday. The twin suns were setting behind the mountains and the first stars were appearing in the purple sky. "We did it," Rob said to himself. "We actually did it." The Galactic Council expected them to fail, but humans had once again proven that determination and ingenuity could overcome any obstacle the universe threw at them. The Zephyrian scout ship appeared in Haven's sky 6 months after the first colonists landed. Captain Velthara had come to document the failure of the human settlement and report back to the Galactic Council. Instead, she found herself staring down at a thriving town of over 5,000 people spread across the valley floor. "This cannot be correct," Velthara said to her sensors officer. "The data shows extensive construction, agriculture systems, and what appears to be industrial facilities. Humans should not be capable of this level of development on a Class 5 hostile world." The scout ship circled Haven for 3 hours, taking detailed scans and photographs. Velthara watched human children playing in safe areas while adults worked in fields and factories. She saw buildings designed to withstand the planet's extreme temperature swings and radiation storms. Most disturbing of all, she detected energy signatures that suggested the humans had found ways to use local resources that even Zephyrian science had not discovered. Jake Martinez watched the alien scout ship from Haven's command center. He had expected this visit and was ready for it. "Let them look," Jake told his staff. "Let them see what humans can accomplish when we set our minds to it." After the scout ship left, Jake knew the real test would come soon. The Galactic Council would not accept that humans had succeeded where they said success was impossible. Within weeks, all communication between Haven and Earth was cut off. No supply ships were allowed through Zephyrian space, and any vessel trying to reach the human colony was turned away by military patrols. "They want to starve us out," Lisa Brooks said during a council meeting in Haven's main hall. "The council thinks if they cut off our supplies, we will give up and move to their safe zone planets." Dr. Amy Carter had been working day and night in her laboratory since the blockade began. She had made discoveries about Haven's unique properties that excited her more than anything she had ever studied. "The toxic compounds in our soil are not just poison," Amy announced to the council. "They can be processed into an incredibly efficient fuel source." Amy showed her data to the assembled colonists. The same chemicals that killed Earth plants could power their generators, vehicles, and manufacturing equipment for months with just small amounts of raw material. "We do not need fuel shipments from Earth anymore," Amy explained. "This planet can provide everything we need if we learn how to use it." Chief Engineer Rob Phillips immediately began modifying their mining equipment to extract the fuel compounds from the soil. Within a month, Haven was producing more energy than the colony could use. The excess power allowed them to expand their industrial facilities and build new settlements in other parts of the valley. While Amy worked on energy independence, biologist Dr. Ryan Bell made an even more surprising discovery about the razorwings. Ryan had been studying the crystal-winged creatures since the early days of the settlement. He noticed they had complex social behaviors and seemed to communicate with each other using patterns of light from their crystalline wings. "I think they are trying to talk to us," Ryan told Steve Murphy during one of their regular security meetings. "The razorwings are not just animals. They show signs of intelligence and organized social structure." Steve had been tracking the razorwing flocks for months and noticed they avoided certain areas around Haven while showing curiosity about others. "Maybe they understand we are not here to hurt them," Steve suggested. "They could have attacked us many times, but they choose not to." Ryan spent weeks developing a communication system using light patterns similar to the ones the razorwings used. He set up equipment that could flash colored lights in sequences and waited to see how the creatures would respond. The first breakthrough came when a young razorwing landed near Ryan's research station and began mimicking the light patterns he was creating. Within days, more razorwings were participating in the communication experiments. Ryan discovered they had names for different locations, weather patterns, and even individual humans in the colony. The creatures had been watching the settlement carefully and had developed their own understanding of human activities. The true test of the human-razorwing relationship came during Haven's worst radiation storm. The planet's twin suns erupted with solar flares that sent deadly radiation streaming toward the surface. Haven's warning systems detected the storm hours before it arrived. But the colonists knew their shelters might not be enough to protect everyone. Kate Adams was working in the agricultural domes when the razorwing flock leader landed nearby. The creature's wings flashed in urgent patterns that Ryan's communication system translated as, "Danger coming, follow us now." Without hesitation, Kate gathered her workers and followed the razorwings into the forest. The creatures led the humans to cave systems hidden in the mountains that provided perfect protection from radiation storms. Hundreds of colonists took shelter in the caverns alongside thousands of razorwings while the deadly storm passed overhead. For 3 days, humans and aliens shared the same spaces, and children from both species played together in the underground chambers. "They saved our lives," Kate reported to Jake after the storm ended. "The razorwings knew about natural shelters we never found. They could have left us to face the radiation alone, but they chose to help us instead." The partnership between humans and razorwings changed everything about life on Haven. The creatures showed colonists the locations of valuable minerals, warned them about dangerous weather, and even helped defend the settlement from hostile wildlife. In return, humans shared their food and medical knowledge, helping sick or injured razorwings recover from accidents. Dr. Amy Carter's laboratory began producing new materials by combining human technology with razorwing knowledge of local resources. The creatures knew which plants were safe to eat, which rocks contained useful metals, and which areas were safest for building. This information accelerated Haven's development by years. The colony's population continued to grow as more families moved down from the USS Horizon. New settlements appeared across 3 continents as humans learned to work with the planet's natural systems instead of fighting against them. Children born on Haven showed remarkable adaptation to the local environment, developing better tolerance for radiation and faster reflexes that helped them navigate the dangerous terrain. By the end of their first year, Haven was producing its own food, fuel, and manufactured goods. The colony had achieved complete independence from Earth and was actually exporting unique materials back to human space through secret trading networks. The Galactic Council's blockade had failed to stop human expansion, and their assumptions about human weakness had been proven completely wrong. Jake Martinez stood in Haven's Central Plaza and watched the evening ritual that had become a symbol of their success. Human and razorwing children played together while adults from both species worked on collaborative projects. The toxic world that was supposed to kill them had become home to a thriving multi-species civilization. "They thought we would fail," Jake said to Lisa Brooks as they watched the sunset paint the mountains in brilliant colors. "Instead, we found a way to succeed beyond anything they imagined possible." 5 years after the first landing, Haven had grown far beyond anyone's expectations. The original settlement in the valley had become a bustling city of 20,000 people, but it was no longer alone. Human colonies now dotted 3 continents, connected by roads, communication networks, and regular transport flights. Dr. Amy Carter walked through her expanded research complex and marveled at what they had accomplished. Her laboratories now employed hundreds of scientists, both human and razorwing, working together to unlock the secrets of their unique world. The toxic soil compounds that once threatened to kill their crops had become the foundation of technologies that surpassed anything in the Galactic Council's databases. "Show me the latest results from the materials lab," Amy said to her assistant, Dr. Kevin Park. Kevin had been one of the children who arrived on the USS Horizon, and now at age 15, he was already making important discoveries about Haven's mineral composition. Kevin pulled up holographic displays showing crystalline structures that seemed to defy physics. The combination of local minerals with razorwing biocrystals creates materials that are stronger than anything we have seen before, Kevin explained with excitement. A cable made from this material could lift the entire city of Haven off the ground. The breakthrough had come from observing how razorwings maintained their crystal wings. The creatures absorbed specific minerals from Haven's soil and incorporated them into living crystal structures that could repair themselves and adapt to different conditions. Human scientists learned to replicate this process, creating materials that were incredibly strong, lightweight, and self-healing. Pilot Jennifer Stone used these new materials to build aircraft that could survive Haven's extreme weather conditions. Jennifer had been flying shuttles between the surface and the USS Horizon since the early days of the colony. Now she led expeditions to explore and map Haven's most remote regions. The northern continent has mineral deposits unlike anything we found near the first settlement, Jennifer reported after returning from a 3-week mapping flight. There are mountains made almost entirely of the biocrystal materials. If we can establish mining operations there, we could build starships that would make Zephyrian technology look primitive. The idea of building starships on Haven had seemed impossible when they first arrived. Now it was becoming reality as human engineers combined their knowledge with razorwing biotechnology and Haven's unique resources. Chief Engineer Rob Phillips had already started construction on the first interstellar vessel designed and built entirely on their frontier world. The shipbuilding project attracted attention from unexpected visitors. A small craft appeared at the edge of Haven's solar system and broadcast a message in broken human language. The ship contained a group of Nexari refugees led by an individual called Crystalline Singer Vash. The Nexari were living crystal beings who communicated through light patterns and harmonic vibrations. They had been part of the Galactic Council for thousands of years, but Vash and her followers had been exiled for questioning the Council's treatment of younger species like humanity. "We heard of human success on Forbidden World." Vash communicated through translated light patterns when she met with Jake Martinez. "Council says impossible, but we see truth. Humans achieve what Council species cannot. We seek permission to join colony and learn human methods." Jake welcomed the Nexari refugees, and their presence brought new knowledge that accelerated Haven's technological development. The crystal beings understood energy manipulation in ways that amazed human scientists. They showed Dr. Carter how to create power systems that could tap directly into stellar radiation, providing unlimited clean energy for the growing colonies. More refugees followed the Nexari. A group of exiled Vorthak arrived 6 months later, fleeing persecution for refusing to follow their hive mind's loyalty to the Council. The Vorthak were insectoid beings who excelled at biological engineering and large-scale construction projects. The newest arrivals integrated into Haven's multi-species society with surprising ease. Human children learned Nexari light language while razorwing young ones played with Vorthak larvae in specially designed playgrounds. Adults from all 4 species worked together on projects that would have been impossible for any single race to accomplish alone. Dr. Ryan Bell established the first interspecies school where human, razorwing Nexari, and Vorthak children learned together. The young ones adapt so quickly to each other's differences, Ryan observed while watching a mixed group of students work on a science project. They see cooperation where adults often see only competition. The colony's success was measured not just in population growth, but in technological advancement. Haven's factories produced goods that were superior to Council-made products in every category. Their food production systems could feed millions of people using minimal resources. Their construction methods created buildings that could withstand natural disasters that would destroy conventional structures. Jennifer Stone led the construction of Haven's first orbital shipyard, a massive facility that could build vessels large enough to carry entire colonies to other worlds. The shipyard used artificial gravity generated by Nexari crystal technology, while Vorthak biological systems maintained perfect environmental conditions throughout the structure. The first starship to roll out of Haven's shipyard was unlike anything in the galaxy. The HSS Pioneer combined human engineering, razorwing biocrystals, Nexari energy systems, and Vorthak biological components into a vessel that was part machine and part living organism. The ship could repair itself, adapt to different environments, and travel faster than any Council vessel. Captain Martinez, now promoted to Admiral of Haven's growing fleet, took personal command of the Pioneer for its maiden voyage. The ship's destination was a nearby star system where long-range sensors had detected signs of another species struggling to establish colonies on frontier worlds. We are going to show the galaxy that cooperation works better than domination, Jake announced to the mixed crew of humans, Razorwings, Nexari, and Vorthak aboard the Pioneer. The Council keeps species separated and weak. We will bring them together and make them strong. The Pioneer's first mission was a complete success. They found a species of aquatic beings called the Tided Dwellers, who had been struggling to establish underwater colonies on a water world. Using Haven's cooperative approach, the Pioneer's crew helped the Tided Dwellers develop new technologies that turned their failing settlements into thriving cities. Word of Haven's success spread through secret communication networks that connected oppressed species across the galaxy. More refugee ships began arriving at Haven's coordinates, carrying beings who had been labeled as inferior by the Council but possessed knowledge and abilities that enriched the growing Confederation. Amy Carter found herself managing research projects that involved dozens of different species, each contributing unique perspectives to solve complex problems. We are not just surviving on this frontier world, Amy told a gathering of scientists from 7 different species. We are creating new forms of science that the Council never imagined possible. The technological advances coming out of Haven began to worry the Galactic Council. Their spy networks reported that humans had achieved energy independence, developed superior materials, and were building starships using completely unknown technologies. Even more troubling was the reports of multiple species working together voluntarily instead of being forced into the Council's rigid hierarchy. Ambassador Krelvex called an emergency session of the Council's ruling body. The human contamination is spreading, he warned the assembled alien leaders. If we do not act soon, their cooperative model could undermine everything we have built over the past 10,000 years. The Council reached a unanimous decision. Haven and its multi-species confederation represented an existential threat to their authority. A military fleet would be assembled to destroy the human colony and make an example that would discourage other species from following their path. But as Council warships prepared for their assault, Haven's people continued their work of building something new and better than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Galactic Council's war fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Haven's solar system, like a storm cloud blocking out the stars. 200 warships spread across space in perfect formation, representing the combined military might of the Zephyrian Empire, the Nexari Collective, and the Vorthak Hive. Admiral Krell commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive vessel that had destroyed entire civilizations. Begin long-range scans of the human infestation, Krell ordered his bridge crew. I want to know exactly what these primitives think they have built on their pathetic frontier world. The sensor reports that came back surprised even the experienced admiral. Haven's orbital facilities rivaled the most advanced Council installations. The planet's surface showed massive cities, industrial complexes, and what appeared to be defensive installations of unknown design. Most troubling of all, the scans detected multiple species living and working together in apparent harmony. Impossible, Krell muttered as he reviewed the data. No civilization has ever achieved this level of development in just 5 years. The humans must be using stolen Council technology. On Haven's surface, Admiral Jake Martinez stood in the command center he had built into the mountains above the original colony. The room was filled with humans, Razorwings, Nexari, and Vorthak working together to coordinate the planet's defense. Jake had been expecting this attack for months and had used every resource at their disposal to prepare. Fleet composition analysis complete, reported Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia, Haven's chief tactical officer. Tony had been a shuttle pilot during the early days of the colony and had become an expert in the unconventional warfare tactics that frontier life demanded. Standard Council formation, heavy cruisers supported by destroyer screens. They are following the same battle doctrine they have used for 1,000 years. Jake smiled grimly as he studied the enemy fleet deployment. The Council's rigid military thinking would be their weakness in this battle. Haven's defenders had learned to adapt and improvise during 5 years of survival on a hostile world. Those same skills would serve them well against an enemy that could not imagine fighting any way except by the rulebook. Activate the planetary defense grid, Jake ordered. All civilians to underground shelters. Contact the Razorwing flights and tell them to begin harassment operations on my signal. Haven's defense systems were unlike anything in Council databases. Instead of conventional weapons, they used the planet's natural hazards as weapons. Orbital satellites could channel and amplify the radiation storms that swept through the system. Ground-based installations could create artificial weather, patterns that disrupted enemy sensors and navigation. First phase of the Battle of Haven's sky began when Council scouts approached the planet to establish targeting data for their main fleet. They expected to find primitive human defenses that could be quickly overwhelmed. Instead, they flew into coordinated attacks by razoring, squadrons using tactics that no Council species had ever encountered. The crystal-winged creatures moved through space using biological thrust systems that generated no heat signature. They attacked in swarms that appeared from multiple directions simultaneously, using their natural crystal wings to slice through scout ship hulls before disappearing into the radiation fields that surrounded Haven. "What are these things?" demanded the commander of Scout Squadron 7 as his ships came under attack. "They are not in any of our databases. How are they flying in space without life support systems?" Admiral Krellnex watched his scout squadrons being destroyed by creatures that should not have been able to survive in the vacuum of space. The Razorwings had adapted to Haven's environment so completely that they could operate anywhere in the local solar system, using radiation that would kill other species as a source of energy. All scouts returned to the main fleet immediately. Krellnex ordered. "We will proceed with orbital bombardment using long-range weapons. These biological anomalies cannot threaten our capital ships." The Council fleet advanced toward Haven in their standard attack formation, preparing to sterilize the planet's surface with weapons that had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had almost reached optimal firing range when Haven's real defenses activated. Dr. Amy Carter had spent 2 years developing ways to weaponize the radiation storms that regularly swept through Haven's solar system. Her installations could capture energy from stellar flares and focus it into beams that were invisible to most sensors but devastatingly effective against electronic systems. The first radiation beam struck Admiral Krellnex's flagship just as the Council fleet prepared to open fire. Every electronic system on the bridge shut down simultaneously as focused stellar radiation overloaded their circuits. Similar beams hit ships throughout the Council formation, leaving them blind and helpless while Haven's mobile defenses moved to attack. Commander Tony Garcia led a squadron of Haven-built fighters into battle against the crippled Council fleet. The human ships were smaller and faster than Council vessels, built using biocrystal materials that could adapt to battle damage and repair themselves during combat. Tony's pilots used flight patterns inspired by razorwing hunting techniques, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the enemy could respond. "Target their weapon systems first," Tony ordered his pilots over the communication network. "Disable them, but do not destroy the ships unless necessary. We want prisoners who can tell the galaxy what really happened here." The Council fleet found themselves fighting an enemy that broke every rule of space warfare. Human ships that should have been destroyed by direct hits continued fighting with hull breaches that sealed themselves. Weapons that should have been knocked out by electromagnetic pulses remained functional, thanks to biological backup systems. Pilots who should have been killed by high gravity maneuvers survived because they had been adapted to Haven's extreme environment. Admiral Krellnex watched his superior fleet being defeated by fighters that used technology he could not understand. How are they doing this? he demanded of his science officer. Their ships are smaller and their weapons are weaker. We should be winning this battle. The science officer studied the sensor readings with growing amazement. Admiral, their vessels appear to be partially alive. The hull materials are repairing damage faster than we can inflict it. Their pilots are pulling maneuvers that should kill any biological being, but they show no signs of distress. The final phase of the battle began when Haven's orbital stations joined the fight. These installations were built into asteroid-sized chunks of biocrystal that had been moved into defensive positions around the planet. Each station could channel energy from Haven's twin suns into weapons that punched through Council shields like they did not exist. Admiral Krellnex's flagship took a direct hit from one of these solar-powered weapons and lost main power throughout half the ship. Emergency systems activated as the bridge filled with smoke and sparks from overloaded circuits. The proud admiral who had come to destroy a primitive human colony found himself facing capture or destruction at the hands of the species he had dismissed as inferior. All Council ships. This is Admiral Martinez of the Haven Defense Force. Jake's voice came over every communication system in the battered fleet. You have exactly 10 minutes to surrender before we destroy your remaining vessels. Your crews will be treated with dignity and returned to Council space unharmed, but your ships will remain here as evidence of what happens when you underestimate human determination. Admiral Krellnex stared at the communication screen in disbelief. The battle that was supposed to demonstrate Council superiority had ended with total defeat at the hands of a species they had tried to confine to worker planets. His fleet of 200 warships had been reduced to 60 damaged vessels limping toward surrender. How is this possible? Krellnex asked Jake during the surrender ceremony aboard the captured flagship. Your people have been in space for barely a century. We have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Jake looked at the defeated alien admiral with something almost like pity. You spent 10,000 years believing that might makes right and that cooperation is weakness. We spent 5 years learning that survival requires adaptation and that different species are stronger when they work together than when they fight alone. The Battle of Havens. Sky marked the end of the Galactic Council's unchallenged rule over the galaxy. Within months, frontier worlds across Council space declared their independence and began forming cooperative alliances based on Haven's model. Species that had been kept separated and weak discovered they could accomplish amazing things when they combined their knowledge and abilities. Dr. Amy Carter established the Haven Institute for Frontier Sciences, which became a center of learning for species from across the galaxy. Young beings of dozens of races came to Haven to study the cooperative methods that had turned a hostile world into a thriving, multi-species civilization. The rigid caste system that had kept certain species as servants while others ruled began to crumble as worlds. Everywhere realized that innovation and determination mattered more than ancient prejudices. The galaxy entered a new age of exploration and discovery as barriers fell and new alliances formed.